All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. I'm Lieutenant Jackie Davis. I am the spokeswoman for the Anne Arundel County Police Department. Joining us all here today, we have our county executive, Mr. Stuart Pittman, the chief of the Anne Arundel County Police Department, Amal Awad, and representing the FBI, we have Special Agent in Charge, Tom Sobocinski. So as you all know, we asked you here today because we have a major announcement in the 1970 murder of Pamela Lynn Conyers. Pam was 16 years old when she was murdered. On October 16, 1970, Pam went to do what most teenagers do. She left to go run an errand at the Arundel Mall. And if you're familiar with our county at all, the Arundel Mall is actually only a few miles from here, right on Ritchie Highway near Aquahart Road. Pam never returned from running that errand. Later that evening, her family called to report her missing. 3 days later, on October 19, 1970, Pam's car was found abandoned on the side of Route 100 in the area we now know as the Waterford Road overpass. That area was still under construction at the time. Unfortunately, less than 24 hours later, on October 20th, 1970, Pam's body was found just a short distance from where that vehicle was recovered. An autopsy was performed, and the cause of Pam's death was ruled asphyxiation via strangulation, and the manner a homicide. For the last 52, almost 53 years, generations of our homicide detectives have refused to give up on Pam's case. And now I would like to ask our chief to please come forward with the update.
Thank you, Lieutenant Davis. Good morning to everyone. I thank you for joining us here this morning. My name is Amal Awad. I serve as Chief of Police for the Anne Arundel County Police Department. Again, we've asked you to join us here this morning to announce that after more than 52 years, we've identified the suspect in the murder of Pamela Lynn Conyers. That suspect is Forrest Clyde Williams III. However, Mr. Williams died in 2018. If he were still alive, he would have been charged with the murder of Pamela Conyers. As you just heard, Pamela was a 16-year-old Anne Arundel County resident who was violently murdered. She just attended the Glen Burnie High School homecoming bonfire and pep rally. She was quite simply doing what most 16-year-old high school students did back then. She was living her life, creating memories and spending precious moments with her family and friends, simply celebrating and enjoying the essence of her teen years until her life was tragically and selfishly taken. To the family and loved ones of Pamela, we hope that today's announcement brings at least some degree of comfort and peace in finally learning who was responsible for her murder. Pamela was never forgotten, nor will she ever be forgotten. To our federal and state partners, particularly the FBI and the Office of the Attorney General for Maryland, we thank you for your collaboration and assistance with this case. I'd also like to commend our police department's evidence collection unit, our forensics lab, and our latent print unit, and to our homicide detectives who work this case and works cold cases, past and present, particularly Sergeant Collier and Detective DePietro, who are here today. Thank you. Thank you for your persistence. You never gave up. I'm very grateful for you, as we're all so very grateful for you and your tenacity. In closing, I want to add that even though we've identified the murder suspect, we ask anyone with information regarding the murder of Pamela Conyers to contact the Anne Arundel County Police Department at 410-222-4731. You may remain anonymous and call the tip line at 410-222-4700. And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you all joining us and being here. And at this time, I'll turn the podium over to Special Agent in Charge with the FBI, Tom Sobocinski. Didn't mess that up too badly. A little bit.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Tom Sobocinski. I'm the Special Agent in Charge with the FBI's Baltimore Field Office. Thank you for joining us today. We are pleased to deliver a measure of justice for Pamela Conyers and her loved ones. Pamela was a smiling 16-year-old going shopping at the mall. Her life was viciously taken away from her. Now, after more than half a century, the FBI, through investigative genetic genealogy, have helped identify the man who killed Pamela. We hope this offers some consolation to those who loved her. When Pamela was murdered in 1970, investigative genetic genealogy did not exist. DNA analysis did not exist. The tools, both scientific and investigative, used to solve her murder have evolved. This technique gives the FBI a chance to solve cases that would not have been solved in any other way. It has given hope where previously there may have been none. I'm grateful for the strong collaboration and persistence of our law enforcement partners in the Anne Arundel County Police Department and the Maryland Attorney General's Office. FBI agents use investigative genetic genealogy to generate new leads when other investigative methods have been exhausted. We use crime scene DNA and its analysis to develop a profile. We then use publicly accessible databases and information to identify potential relatives of a suspect or of the victim. The DNA does not tell investigators who the subject is. This is still an investigation. It is not just work done in a lab. Technology may have helped solve Pamela's case, but it was also every member of law enforcement who worked on it over the last 5 decades and who never stopped trying to find Pamela's killer. Cases may grow cold, investigators may change, but this proves for law enforcement, victims are never forgotten. To Pamela's family, to those who loved her, to every victim, the FBI will never stop seeking justice. To those committing crimes, no, we will not rest. It does not matter how much time goes by. The FBI will exhaust every avenue and, as in this case, continuously work to determine if new tools can help us as technology and science evolves. Thank you for your time. I'll turn it over to Executive Pittman.
So I'm really here to thank our public servants who never give up. Thank our partners at the FBI. Thank our Office of Attorney General. Thank Parabon Nanolabs for their work and their technology, and the Anne Arundel County Evidence Collection Unit, Forensics Lab, and Latent Print Unit. I think it says something about who we are as human beings, that we don't give up. We are shaken by these crimes when they take place, and I don't think we ever recover from them. For the people who knew Pamela Graves, who are in this county, who went to high school with her family, I hope that this brings some closure. It probably brings back some painful memories as well. But I think that I, and hopefully all of us in this county and this country who are served by the FBI as well, should feel good that we as human beings don't give up when these things happen. And we work and we work and we work and we put whatever resources it takes to find out who the killer was. And now we know.
Thank you very much. We will open the floor to questions, but before I do, it is very important for me to say that detectives and investigators have not ruled out the possibility that another person or persons may be involved in Pam's murder. So because of that, we have to protect the integrity of the investigation and any potential future prosecutions if we get to that point. So if you have a question that we cannot answer, I apologize to that, and I do know that's frustrating, but obviously our first priority priority is, if there are any additional suspect or suspects, to be able to successfully prosecute should they still be alive. Questions? Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a question. Where is that booking photo from?
So that booking photo is actually one of our booking photos. He was arrested a few times in the early 70s here in Anne Arundel County. Nothing major, drunk and disorderly, that type of stuff. Nothing real big or anything that you would see connected to a murder.
And the genetic genealogy that led to his identification, was that kind of like the volunteer, like true crime people who do it as a hobby, or was it actually something the police department pursued?
I'm going to turn that over to FBI
Oh, okay.
for us.
And I'm wondering if you've connected him to any of the other unsolved, any other cold cases.
Yeah, I can't talk about any other cases, but for this one in particular, it is a team of FBI employees based here in Baltimore that work this, that create a family tree for potential victims or subjects, and then based on that, we identified him as the actual perpetrator of this.
And I know someone else will ask that, but
Sure.
when we hear about stories like this, we hear people like you say, well, we identified this third cousin and we went here and then that's how we found him. Can you explain how, without giving away, too much away, can you explain how you found this person in particular?
Sure. I mean, I'll explain in general how we do this process in a little bit more detail. That probably helps. So,
Well, I was hoping you would explain this.
I know. Unfortunately, they're all very similar, and it hopefully gets us to the result. So it's going to be descriptive. So essentially, we put it into a commercially available database. Based on that, we find an individual via DNA who is a family member. And then we, like many people out there, do a family tree. And we try to generationally work that tree down to somebody who may fit the age and gender profile, and then work to narrow that. And then in cases to be resolved, we will then get a DNA sample from the individual who we think is a subject. The FBI is doing this nationwide because of violent crime, and so we only do this whether it's for violent homicides and or violent sexual assaults.
So you did get a DNA sample from someone in this case?
Yes, we obviously got DNA samples from people in this case.
Do you know if Williams knew Pamela? Were they maybe classmates or anything like that?
Yeah, so there's no evidence to link Pamela and Forrest at all. So detectives and investigators don't believe that these two had any run-ins before this fatal night.
We know
Great
anything
question.
about Williams' life thereafter, whether he was a career criminal, had a wife and kids, and lived out his life, died in prison, anything?
Yeah, no, so we know a little bit about him. So he was originally from Virginia. He and his family moved up in his late teenage, early adult here in Anne Arundel County. He actually went to an Anne Arundel County high school, not Glen Burnie where Pamela went, but a close high school here in the county. He did side jobs as a carpenter, and then when he got a little older, he moved back to Virginia, and that's actually where he died in 2018 of natural causes. As far as, type of criminal history, again, he had a few things here in the county, nothing major, drunk, disorderly, those type of charges. He did have an assault down in Virginia a few years before his death, but I don't have the details of that Virginia case. Yes, sir.
Was he a
Yes.
Glen Burnie resident at the time?
He went to a Pasadena high school, so I'm not sure if he was Glen Burnie or Pasadena. Great question.
Can you tell us which high school?
Northeast High School. Yes, ma'am.
Family's not here, but can you share how they reacted to this news? I'm sure there's some kind of emotion.
Yeah, so she does have some surviving family members who really just, it's been traumatic for more than half a century. I mean, this is just, when you really sit and think about how long they suffered, they were obviously very happy to have some answers, but of course you get one answer and you have 12 more questions. So they did ask that their privacy be respected while they process and really kind of wrap their head around. I know that she had a lot of school friends in the area who are still in the area, and that this has haunted for, again, more than half of their lives now, because they're late 60s, early 70s now. So hopefully, I know this gave you guys a lot more questions, but hopefully at least it answers some. And also we're hoping that maybe somebody knew Forrest back in the day and maybe has additional information that can say, hey, this is how they met. Hey, this is what happened, and help us answer those questions. So we're also asking the public for more information that way too. Again, the chief gave those phone numbers, but the number to homicide, 410-222-4731, or our tip line where you can remain anonymous, 410-222-4700. Both great ways to get in touch with us.
So this is not considered a closed case?
No, it is not. It is not. Yes, sir.
The Sister Kathy Stesnick case, I mean, there was some talk in the past that there's a possible connection between not just her murder, but other cold case murders. You cannot say if there's any connection to that particular case.
We do not believe there's any connection to Kathy Stesnick.
So you can say outright there is.
We do not. We can't say outright, but we do not believe. There's no reason for detectives do not believe that that's linked at all to that specific case. Yes, sir.
Pamela's case, how big was that suspect pool initially until you narrowed it down to William?
I mean, really, you have a homicide victim. It could be anybody else in the world that's still living. So you're going from 7.5 billion or whatever the population of the world is at the time down to 1.
And how much foresight was there in the evidence collection on this case?
Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating? I don't know if everybody heard that question from Jeff Hager, but the foresight in evidence collection, and that just really goes to show that even 50 years ago, half a century ago, how good our evidence collection unit was, how good our homicide unit was to know to collect things that really at the time they couldn't do anything with. And that's why even today we continue to be so thorough with our crime scene investigations. And when you see roads shut down or businesses shut down for a long time, it can inconvenience you, but we're really trying to be as thorough as we can. Because who knows what type of technology we're going to have in another 50 years that can help us close cases that may be happening tomorrow, next week, or last year.
So that's such a great question, Jeff. I was going to ask the same thing. So
Yeah, Kate.
I'm sure in 1970 they didn't even know DNA was a thing. So what
Right.
was it in the thing? Or maybe some people did. But what was it in the evidence that had been collected that later you were able to get a sample from? And then I have a follow-up after that.
Okay, yeah, so that's a pretty specific question that I'm not really going to be able to answer the way you want me to. But we all know where DNA can be found. It can be found in hair, blood, skin, all of those things. And there's always a transference of evidence, right? So DNA can be found when we collect evidence, and that's kind of how I have to answer that, Kate. I'm sorry.
And once you identified him, the FBI identified him as a suspect, were you able to go back through the case and match him to other clues that have been released publicly? I was like 5 when it happened, so
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly what is legit and what isn't. But there was the thing about tire tracks and the closed road, and so when you went back, were you able to say, oh yeah, he knew about, he could have moved this cone, or he drove an MG?
So this is how I have to answer that. Because we have not ruled out that there may have been another person involved, we can't give out their specific information. And the reason why is because if somebody has intimate knowledge of a crime scene, that helps our detectives corroborate that, hey, this person isn't just looking for 15 minutes of fame. This person actually knows that, this is just an example, but that there was a pink feather boa and they mentioned that, or whatever it could be. So we really can't give out specifics, and that's why, just to protect that integrity. And I know that's frustrating. I'm sorry.
I had to ask.
Can you say anything
Ma'am.
more about other cases that you're looking into, potential connections to the suspect?
Not right now.
Okay.
Not right now. And I'm not saying there are any, just
Are there any?
Go ahead, Kate. Sorry, and then I'll get you, Rick.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
Contemporary news accounts differ on where the body was found. Some say it was in the median strip, some say it was on a deserted farm road nearby. Where was she found?
I'm being told she was found a short distance from where the vehicle was located, and the vehicle was located on the side of Route 100 where they were building the Waterford Road overpass. So where exactly it was in relation to that, honestly, I don't know. And I really don't know if they would want me saying that if I did, to be honest with you. Yeah.
You've already eliminated one case that has been tied to this. There are 2 other local cases. Has the investigation expanded to include cases beyond that, either in Maryland, Virginia, or elsewhere?
Yeah, so whenever we have a case, especially one that involves DNA, they go into different databases, right? And then different organizations would be notified. So we don't rule anything out. Doesn't mean we've connected anything, but we don't rule anything out just to rule it out, if that makes sense.
And if no one minds, one last. Is the cold case list on your website up to
Sure. Is that up to date, the cold case list? Yes, sir, it is.
And with that, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
The DNA going into other databases.
Mm-hmm.
Has his DNA been put into CODIS to see if he ties to other crimes?
Yes. Kate?
And as I just to follow up, it has not returned a match yet, or you aren't able to say if it's returned another match?
I honestly don't know. I can find that out for you.
Okay, well, maybe.
I don't think.
Tell us that?
I don't.
Oh, you don't know?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be good to know.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. Oh,
Are there any?
Miss Amaro. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any of the original investigators, or from maybe 40 years ago or 30 years ago, that are here today, or any of the cold case investigators, people who've dedicated decades to try and solving this, that might be here?
There are some here today. I don't know if they're willing to give interviews, but I can ask once we get done here.
Okay, great.
But yes, I can ask that for you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys very, very much. We appreciate it.